All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out on a Wednesday to hear about AI. I don't know, some of you may have been here yesterday. We had an AI session. It was very much on autonomous buildings and how to use AI to effectively optimize your facility. That's not what we're talking about today. So today what we're going to talk about is, I'm going to say like DIY AI. How you can actually start using AI effectively in your own businesses. And so I'm here with Jacob from Cochrane. Cochrane and my firm, excuse me, SES Consulting. We're an engineering consulting firm up in Vancouver. We've started to use AI, just play with it in our process, our consulting engineering process, a lot to do with automation. I'm going to show you some examples. Jacob's going to be talking about how they use it in their business. Yeah, hopefully you leave here with some ideas of how you can actually start using it in your own practice. But just by way of show of hands before we start, how many of you are actually using AI today on a regular basis? All right, most of the audience. So that's good. So we're not starting from scratch, but hopefully you'll learn some stuff and maybe you can teach us some stuff. If anyone has, I think we're both open to comments and questions. So as we go through, if anyone has something they want to say or something they want to add, put your hand up and let's have a discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob to get started, and yeah, take it away.
Thank you, Brad. Good morning. I'm Jacob Finley with Cochrane Supply. I'm the Director of Tech Services, so all of our tech support teams, training teams at Cochrane roll up under me. I'm a big tech nerd, always have been. I apologize for my shaking and my voice going out, but they usually don't let me out of the computer lab or wherever they've got me stored. So 2 years ago, I think it was, or maybe even 3 at this point, at ControlsCon, I kind of did a presentation on where ChatGPT was at the time. And I think it took people by surprise a little bit, even then. We talked about things that it could do in the BAS world back then, things like specifications, things like sequence of operations. It couldn't do the best job, but it did a pretty good job. But today, it's really ramped up. You're going to get to see a lot of stuff with that. I'm sure you guys have all used it for things along those lines. My presentation, what I titled it was AI in your business today. And I want you to think of that 2 different ways. So number 1 is in your business. That's more than BAS. That's your accounting team. That's your management practices. That is your procurement team. Everywhere along the lines in your business is where I want you to think of that. I also want you to think of it as it's in your business personally. And it's a good way to defeat the we've always done it this way, in your business and in your life. And I want to show you a couple different ways that I've been using it personally to help do that. So first off is just going to be practical AI uses for managers. Number 1 thing that AI's helped me do, just ChatGPT mostly is what I'm talking about. There's all the sorts of other options you could be using, language models, is workflow mapping. So the number 1 thing that small businesses especially miss out on is just mapping your portion of your businesses and your team's workflow. What do you do from start to finish with your team? Who does what, and what does that look like? So many people struggle with mapping that. I challenge everyone to ask ChatGPT to help you map it and go through the steps that it gives you to help create that map, because having that map to give your team is just exponentially important as you go through other AI uses and as you go through other software tools and things you could be adding for everything from project management to financials to whatever it could be. Team management and relationship management are big as well. So first thing is workflow mapping in AI. What are your team's sequences of operations? Not just your equipment, not your lighting, not your BAS, but your team. Is there room for improvement? Let AI challenge your model. So your model, which I'm going to give an example of, is probably going to be something that you've been using for 15 years that you swear works. Let AI challenge it, and that's my challenge to you guys, is to do that when you get back to your offices. So here's an example of a workflow mapping example that I gave ChatGPT. This is phase 1 of a contracting job, real simple. Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Bidding, contracting, kickoff meeting, scope and design review, and material procurement. Real simple, just phase 1 of a project. So I dumped that into ChatGPT and I said, do you see any problems with this? It's what I've done at my contracting company for 15 years and it works well and we're successful with it. And it says, yeah, there are some things that I would adjust with that. And you're going to be sad to see that it's probably all the things your team has been complaining about for the last 15 years, even though it's just AI. So number one, it says you don't have your project manager involved early enough in the project, something I think Phil just talked about in the last session. The next is going to be kickoff meetings lacks key stakeholders. Why don't you have the commissioning agent and the owner's rep in your kickoff meetings? Someone in the last meeting, an owner's rep, asked why he wasn't in the kickoff meetings. Number three, scope and design review. Why is this happening after the kickoff meeting in your sequence of operations for how you do a project? Number four, material procurement. Why are you ordering all the material up front instead of staging it based on lead time? So then I asked it to basically, you know what, you're right. Review and revamp my sequence of operation and my workflow map for my team and add in those things that you're looking for. And that's what it did with this new system. You can instantly copy and paste this out of here right into your new workflow processes, whether it's in Microsoft Word, whether it's in your Asana chat, whatever it is. You have a new process very quickly by doing that. The idea of this is don't just think about it for making you a document, for making you a schedule, for making you an outline. Use it as a thinking tool and something to challenge you because it's really, really good at it. This is the other part that I think is really cool. We can optimize our workflow and our timing, our schedules with ChatGPT. What about teams and relationships? So ChatGPT didn't used to have a memory. It was very much, every chat was a new chat and it did what you asked it and you could give it some information and it would spit it out. Today, there's multiple ways that you can give ChatGPT way more memory and other models. And I want to show you kind of how I use that with managing my team of tech support and training. So here's an example company, Super Controls LLC, which I came up with. And I just put a company overview and I took a list of all of the employees with their strengths and weaknesses and their personalities, and I put that into a document. Now, there's way more than this in the actual document. There's 50 employees or something like that. And then what I did was I made a GPT using the OpenAI ChatGPT feature to make your own GPT, and I upload that document into it. Now, this is a separate chat that I can access at any time right from my phone. I can bring up my Super Controls Assistant for my company, and I can ask it questions like, who on my team has the most bandwidth? Who is the busiest member on my team at this time? Cool things you could do if you just upload schedule data, if you can export your Asana schedule right into the GPT. It could see what your team's workforce actually looks like up to date from the moment you upload it. You can even automate that stuff. This is just the simple version. This is something you can do when you go home. Export the CSV of your schedule, import it into a GPT, import a list of your employees, and you could start doing this tomorrow. There's a million services and project management tools and other software that will automate all that and do all this fancy stuff, but you can do it in 20 minutes at home with ChatGPT. So one example I asked it was, I need to task someone on my team with reviewing our company ordering and vendors. Who would be best suited to take on that task? If I was just managing these people, I might think, well, Lena's supposed to do it. She's the procurement manager. I might not think about bringing the CFO in or the inventory specialist. And ChatGPT suggested those three people for those reasons. And it says, I recommend Lena lead the review with support from Robert for financial impact and Kevin for logistics. Okay, there's no excuses for not planning anymore with ChatGPT. All I said was, perfect, sounds great. Give me a project plan to send over to Lena to get this kicked off. And it lines out 8 weeks to get done what I asked to do. Amazing, and it even tells me my next steps. Confirm availability and set the kickoff meeting up. I've got one Outlook meeting to send out now when I copy and paste this into the meeting notes, and we're ready to go. We've got our inventory and our vendor review done. If your team hits roadblocks, no, they don't. They don't have any excuses for not delivering either. If we get to step 2 and the deliverable is a vendor scorecard, and Lena says, well, I don't know what a vendor scorecard is. I don't know what you want on a vendor scorecard. Say, give me 5 minutes. Hey, ChatGPT, give me a good vendor scorecard. There you go. I copy that, I send it to Lena, I say, there you go. That's what I expect from my vendor scorecard. And all this is a communication. So if I don't like something on that vendor scorecard, I just tell it I don't. I don't want pricing on there. I don't know what delivery time really means. I want you to adjust that. And you can sit there and have a conversation while it breaks down and builds the vendor scorecard you want in a 10-minute conversation. You send that back to your team, and they're on to step 3 of the project plan that ChatGPT also created. Relationships. I can finally automate emotion, As a control guy, that's great for me. I love it. So I say, I scored some free tickets for a local concert and I want to reward someone on my team who would enjoy it the most. There you go. It gives me 3 recommendations on who would probably enjoy those things. Now you can pretend like you know your team. It's great. No, it's great. Does a good job. And I want you to think about that for more ways than one. It's great for managing really large teams, but it's also great just for quick conversation and other kind of just quick ideas that you want bounce something off of. Use it like an assistant. Use it as someone you're talking to. And then, there's a lot to do with money and finance. And I'll tell you that it's kind of the forbidden fruit of AI. Every company has a policy about what you can be putting into these different AI tools. Tons of that. As it becomes more and more built into every single thing we touch, I don't know how they're going to keep it out of it. But, I will tell you that it's really good with spreadsheets. It's really good with math. It can do some really interesting things with that kind of information, even with personal budgets. Put you and your partner's income in there and what your bills cost, and ask it to shoot you out a budget. It can do a great job of even that. But I want to go a little bit away from work and just talk about some of the really cool things I've seen it do. More fun, more things you can use kind of in your life. Number 1 is music. It helps us millennials relate to Gen X. I said, I grew up with my parents listening to Motley Crue, and I want to know if there's any modern bands they might like me to take them to a concert. It knows pretty good. I mean, these things scour the internet for tons of data, tons of forums. It's been through every Reddit music page a million times up to date. It knows it knows what's similar to Motley Crue today, and it can make recommendations. Think of using it for things like that. Decorating. I'm a terrible decorator. I don't know how to decorate a room. So I say I want to surprise my wife with a living room decoration update. I know she tells the furniture store she likes mid-century modern. I don't know what that means. All I have is a brown leather sectional, and I want to build a room around it. What do you recommend? Just spits it out. Not only that, I said, well, what do I need to be looking for in these thrift stores she drags me to all the time? Says, I'll tell you exactly what mid-century modern you're going to be looking for in a thrift store. It's brilliant. It has 1 million Pinterest pages to pour through as well and pull data from. I mean, it's just got so much access. It's great. It's just a great partner in things you're doing day to day. The coolest, newest feature that I use for this, or use ChatGPT for, that I recommend you all try, especially if you have CarPlay, is downloading the app, paying the $20 or whatever it is a month, and use the voice feature and the assistant chat feature while you're driving down the road. It's amazing. I drove to New York from Detroit, and I talked to it the entire way. It knows where you're at. You tell it where you're at. You can have a conversation with it about things that are around you. Every town you drive through on the interstate, you can say, hey, tell me about that town. And it'll have 5 minutes of information about that town. You can say, hey, I'm bored and I'm between these 2 cities right now and I want to see something cool, on another site to see. And it'll throw out recommendations. Hey, this is close by, this fort's nearby, this casino's nearby. Does a great job. Not only that, but it can remember things now. My ChatGPT knows about my people. It knows about my team at work. It knows about my boss. It knows about my family. It knows about all of them. So something you can do anytime is just tell it to add it to memory. So I told it, remember that I have a sister, Kristen, and a sister, Kara. Kristen lives in Indiana. Kara lives in Tennessee. I just want you to remember that. And it logs that. I can ask it any time that I'm logged in from now on, tell me about my sisters. And it'll know whatever I've told it over the course of that conversation. I do that with my team a lot. I will say, hey, I've got this project going on and I need to task someone with it. Who would be good for that? And it'll say, you know what? Abe would be great for that. He really enjoys networking and stuff. That's what you've told me about him. Just something to bounce ideas off of. One thing I want to leave you with last to kind of challenge is if you do use ChatGPT and you do like it, you do think you're good with it, there's a really cool game. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Cicada 3301, but if you were on the deep depths of the internet in like 2012, there was a really big cybersecurity challenge that went out. They've recreated it today in a little bit easier format. It's called Cicada Detroit. And if you go on Cicada Detroit, you're going to see just a bunch of puzzles. And they are really technical IT puzzles. There might just be a JPEG picture on the page and nothing else. You have to get to the next step. It'll say step 1. What do you do? I would say if you go to that website and you try to use ChatGPT to get you through every single one of those puzzles, you'll see some amazing things it can do that you'll never know that it could do. I've dumped image files into ChatGPT from the website and said, I need to find some kind of a hidden data in this. What can you tell me? And it would spit back out that image in black and white, a million different hues, refocused with image analysis, looking for some kind of hidden message in it. And then it would say, I don't see anything in any of that. Let me just check the metadata on the image file itself. And it will pull out, oh yes, there's a hidden URL in that image file. Here it is. And I was able to go to it. I've given it voice recording, and it said, I'm looking for a hidden message in this audio file. What do you think? And it says, well, here it is played backwards. Here it is played backwards in slow motion. Here it is played with different pitches taken in and out. And I don't notice anything in it, but here they are for you to play because maybe it's something I can't detect. And then I'm going to dig into the meta files on that audio file too and make sure I can't find a hidden URL or something in it. So it's just very, very cool, unique tools that are built into it that you're never going to see most of the time. But remember, you aren't required to get ChatGPT a PTO policy yet. So try to use as much as you can at work. It's a great tool, and try to use it as an assistant and incorporate it more into what you're doing day to day in your life. Thank you.
That was cool. Any questions for Jacob before we carry on? No? Okay. Yeah, oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, about the management, how do you deal with anything that has to do with privacy?
I keep it out of it. I only give like first names into it, and then it's really only for personal stuff. So I don't really talk about anything in financials or talk about anything what they're working on specifically at work. It's just they like music. This person likes wine. This person likes this. I treat them like more of a friend type of management. Same way I use it for my family, and knows what kind of gifts my mom likes, knows what kind of food my dad likes. My girlfriend, that knows what her favorite restaurants are. That way, whenever I'm driving around and I can't remember, I just ask her. So those kind of things, how I treat the team management right now. I think down the road, you're going to get, tools that meet all the compliances you need your company to be able to dump that information in there, and it'll be able to make great decisions. I just don't know where that's at right now, and I don't know where it's at right now for your company policy.
Question, maybe there first, yeah.
Have you ever tried to feed controls drawings in a large language model?
I have. Haven't had good success in getting them out of it very well yet. I mean, it does better than it did 2 years ago. Feeding them in, it can do a pretty good job of seeing what's going on the images today. I will say it is really good at understanding physics as well.
Is this ChatGPT or a different?
Yeah, ChatGPT. And it depends on which model you're using as well.
Yeah.
And it's not 100% yet. I don't think that its image reading capability is, where everybody's wishing it is right now, but it's leaps and bounds better than I thought it would be 2 years ago.
5 years from now, we could be doing quality control on our own work.
Yes.
By feeding the drawings.
I don't see how it doesn't get to that point. Yeah, I mean, it's that close now. And it knows physics really well. If you don't even tell it what an air handler is, if you just tell it a physics layout of a piece of equipment, it can almost do enough physical calculation to just figure out how that thing should work and give you some kind of sequence, which is really cool as well.
They're like, for using, for like assisted marketing, flyers, et cetera, like,
Yeah.
Are there any concerns in terms of like IP? It's like DeepSeek owns anything you put in there for 2 like that?
Yeah, I'm not in marketing, and I don't know 100%, but I'm sure there is. The only thing that I keep coming back to is this is going to be so integrated into everything you touch. How is it? At some point, something's going to have to break there. We're trying to maintain IP and things like we did 40 years ago when we were printing at a factory. And now it's like, how are you going to possibly do that? Yeah, but I would put that to somebody more in marketing, 100%. Yeah.
It doesn't remember if you don't ask it.
Correct.
Just check.
Yes. Yes, but yeah, be careful. You could. I've noticed before that I've maybe like asked it to remember things and then forgot. And if you get a new girlfriend or something, you might want to let it know. Otherwise, you're going to be going to the wrong restaurants again. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about prompt engineering. Do you see value in it to get better results from the end?
Yeah, definitely. So anything you're doing with any of the language models, you have to be a good prompt engineer, and especially when you go a little bit deeper, not into the full like model creation and training, that's beyond my skill level. But when you go into even in just like creating a custom GPT where you get full fields to be able to fill out that it always kind of references and files that it gets to reference, you'll see that it's like working with a real teammate sometimes. You might have to remind it 8 different places in the document that it needs to go and reference another document. Hey, stop, check that before you tell me again, and then go back and look at this. I find myself copying whole conversations I've had with that bot, putting it back into the model itself and saying, don't do this again. This is terrible. I just had to argue with you for 10 minutes to get the answer I wanted. And so it's really cool how that works. But yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to give some more examples of prompt engineering too as we go through. But yeah, maybe we'll take one more question and then we'll...
Yeah, I think about security and just thinking out loud. Is there a way to encompass your conversations with ChatGPT so that it doesn't go beyond a border? So if you want to talk about your family, could you say, do not cross this line and keep my privacy in check?
There are ways to do it. It's not something I've explored yet just because I know that it's more for a business use case. There's more cost associated to it and things like that. But there's plenty of ways that you can isolate that. Whether you're running it on-prem, like you have your own data center where you're running your own large language model, and then anything you feed it is stuck there at that point. So there are ways to do that. I'm not the right guy to 100% answer that, but I know that if you have a use case for it, they will help you through that. And then there's people using it for all sorts of applications. There's websites now that are using it for legal help. So, and I'm hearing lawyers are the ones signing up for those websites, not anybody else. Like they're the ones that are using those. So you know that there's probably all sorts of laws and things in place, but I think that there's a way around that.
Cool. Well, and we'll make lots more time for questions, but I'm going to run through a few more examples, and I think it touches on some of the things that came up here. Thanks, Jacob. That was fantastic. I'm going to start with a cautionary tale, though, because so I was doing a presentation for a bunch of contractors on commissioning. I'm like, okay, I want to start my presentation with an inspirational quote. I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, find me a good quote about commissioning. And so what it came back with, you probably read it there, but commissioning is the art of turning dreams into reality, where vision meets action and creativity takes its first bold step into the world. Fantastic. That is exactly the kind of quote I want for my presentation. I'm like, well, what's the source of that quote? And so its response was, well, sorry, I couldn't find anything, so I made it up. So just a cautionary tale because it makes things up. I thought it actually made up, and I actually ended up using that quote, and I attributed it to ChatGPT. I didn't mind that it made it up, but I kind of wanted to know that. But it wasn't going to volunteer that information unless I specifically challenged it on like where did this come from. And then it was quite contrite and owning up to that. But anyway, that's a small example, I think, of where you need to be careful with it. But I think Jacob mentioned it briefly too about how far it's come in a short period of time. So this is 2023. And I asked it to write me a sequence of operation for a VAV box. And it came back with this, and, it's not great. I mean, that would be the sort of answer I would expect out of maybe a second or third year engineering student who's taking an HVAC course. It's somebody who doesn't really know anything about controls or an actual building automation system. So, all right, fine. I did a little prompt engineering, and I'm like, okay, well, can you write a sequence of operations, but I want you to look at AHR 36 guidelines. I want you to incorporate that. Okay, you know what? It came back with this. This is better. Like, it definitely was an improvement, but it still wasn't very good. Like, I'm not going to put this into a spec. So, all right, fine. Can't use it for that yet. Decided to come back a year later. Ask the same question. I got a very different response a year later. I got a very detailed sequence of operation. This is looking much, much more like something that I could actually put into a spec. And then same refinement. It gave me tables, all way more content, way richer content, formatted much more like a sequence of operations should be formatted. And then I asked, okay, have you incorporated all the ASHRAE 36 stuff? It's like, well, no, here's more. And then it gave me about 3 more pages of ASHRAE 36 considerations. This will all be available, by the way, on the automated buildings. I see a bunch of you taking photos of this. You're welcome to, but we'll make these slides available on the automated buildings website for this session too after. So if you want to get these, you can. But yeah, way more detail. And then, and this is just ASHRAE 36. And then, the next step I would say would be to ask it, take this and incorporate it back into the stuff you gave me the first time, and then I would get kind of a full sequence of operation. I could be specific about the kind of operating modes I wanted to consider, whether I've got reheat coils, whether I've got occupancy sensors. So it's, in a very short period of time, it has gotten pretty darn good at this kind of thing. And so they have, this I also will say, I was cheap. This is the free version of ChatGPT. The paid version is even better. And we obviously play with that as well. But so it's starting to get to the point now where we can actually use it for some engineering work. I would say this is better than a lot of my junior engineers. If I asked them to go write a VAV sequence from scratch, like not copy paste anything from what we've already done, but this is better than I would expect to get from most of them. And so that's kind of where we're at today. That was from a couple months ago, so check it again in a couple of years. Something else I wanted to run you through. So we do a lot of recommissioning. We do a lot of energy studies. We do a lot of going into buildings, being like, hey, what's wrong with this control system? What do we need to fix? So we wanted to see, can we teach ChatGPT to do recommissioning? So our process was, first we're going to teach ChatGPT what to look for. So the way our process works is we usually send a junior engineer or tech into the control system. They take a bunch of screenshots. They look at trend logs, look at screenshots of the BAS. They look at the sequences. We read the code, and we pull all of that into a document so that if they find something, we've got kind of a snapshot of that, so that we've got some record, and anyone else coming along after can actually see what they found, as opposed to trying to find it again, kind of live. When if it's a transient issue, it may not show up again. So we pull all these screenshots, and we usually include a description of the building, breakdown of summary of this building's got 2 gas boilers, and it's got VAV boxes with reheat, and it's got a chiller, and it's got chill water coils in the air handling unit. Just description so we can kind of understand what's going on in the building. So we've got kind of one central document that we do for every building that's got all that information in it. So we gave ChatGPT that document. And what we also did was we gave it 4 buildings where we'd done this process. And we gave it the list of all the things we'd found. We said, here's the document we used. Here's all the things we found in it. Also here, we also have a database of all the different energy conservation measures and opportunities that we typically find. It's a training tool, so that's what we have our junior engineers go through. And it has some information on what to look for and sort of, where these measures are applicable. So we gave it that as well. So we had all this training. So we basically gave ChatGPT a crash course that we give our junior engineers. And so all that information was uploaded. I said, great. Okay, so now what we're going to do, so that was buildings A, B, and C, gave it all the answers, said this is what we found. And so then we gave it building E. So building E was just that document, but none of the findings. So we gave it, so we uploaded that. Now this is a building that we had done. So this was a kind of a blind test. So what we were going to do is give ChatGPT all the background information, ask it what it could find, and we were going to compare that to what we had actually found as part of the project when we did it ourselves. So that's what we did. And so this is some examples of the prompts that our team used in terms of, you can see building A, B, and C. We're giving it all the information about those buildings, the things that we found. We're kind of checking its understanding. I think that's an important step is, don't just assume that it understood the information it gave you. Actually, it's like an active listening technique, right? It's like, tell me, if you're using that with a person too, it's like, well, can you repeat back to me what I just told you? I want to check your understanding. You should do that with ChatGPT as well, or any large language model. So we did that a few times, made sure it had a good understanding. And so then we said, okay, fantastic. We told it how we want to format the output and said, okay, here's the information. come back to us with the information. Like, tell us what you found. And so that's what you can start to see here. You have a pointer, but over here. So we said, tell us the title, give us a description, tell us what it's about, tell us your assumptions. And then we compared that. So again, this is kind of the continuation of the ChatGPT output. This is what our engineers came up with. And if you start to compare those lists, you'll see that there's quite a bit of overlap, right? Like we're talking about supplier temperature resets. That's in our list as well. We're talking about domestic hot water pumps, some chiller optimization. Like it's probably about 80% accurate. And this was like literally the first test of this that we'd ever done, and it got to that level. Now, I will say the question came up about privacy. So, well, how do we protect our clients' privacy? Because we're taking BAS screenshots that have maybe company logos in it or contractor logos. So we actually, before we put all this data in, we actually went through a process of scrubbing that out, so kind of manually removing any identifying information. That's why they're called buildings A, B, C, and D, and not Orange County Convention Center or whatever, right? So we kind of disguised the identity of the information. But I was blown away by how good it was. And so now, and this is just stuff we've done fairly recently. So our next step is like, well, how can we actually make this part of our workflow? We haven't done it yet. I think the main reason is, one, we don't trust ChatGPT to remember all that yet. So I think we gotta do more playing with some of the, making sure that it's gonna actually remember stuff. But then also just the privacy thing. Like, it's a lot of work to scrub out that data. That actually doesn't save us that much time if we have to go through these kind of data cleansing steps before we get to this output. It actually is almost as fast to have somebody just generate the output ourselves. But our next step is gonna be look at, local models, like run it either on-prem, and actually that's where I'm really excited about DeepSeek, because it's much less CPU intensive. Like I've tried to run large language models off this laptop, and like it works, but you're waiting 5-10 minutes for a response when you put a prompt in. DeepSeek is supposed to be much faster, or we'll invest in some heavier duty hardware. That's the other way we can go as well. So I would expect within the next year this is something that will be hopefully an active part of our workflow. And the question inevitably comes up, well, is this taking someone's job? Does this mean that we need to employ fewer like junior engineers, for example? Because that's who we would have doing a lot of this work now. And the answer is, I don't think so, because, there's a lot more valuable things they can be doing. Like I look at it more, it's a productivity enhancer. But then actually my colleague and she and I got talking about this, and it's like, what? We have some employees who are kind of, they're not our star performers. They're kind of mediocre. They're the people we kind of give this task to a lot. And, there might be an argument for having fewer kind of mediocre performers on our payroll who are really good at kind of doing, sort of the rote stuff. But, they're not the ones we give the hard problems to or the innovative projects to. So I think that, if ChatGPT is going to threaten anyone's job, it's sort of the people who are mediocre and not actually applying critical thinking, or, they're good at kind of doing the stuff that the machine is good at and not so good at doing the hard problems. And so I think that's where we might go. And I think that's where we'll need to start filtering, especially our new hires more. I think, it's going to be more and more important for us to find people who excel at that critical thinking, and who are going to be able to be flexible and innovative in how they approach problems, because there's not going to be a place for people who don't have those skills, because quite frankly, we probably can get ChatGPT to do that stuff. So I think that's interesting. One more thing I want to look at, I just want to talk about, I've got a bunch more, but probably more material than we have time to get through, but just to talk about a new way of interacting with content. I think that's another interesting thing I've discovered recently. So we recently, we were hired to create this electrification guide. We do a lot of work in electrification, decarbonization, and we're trying to educate the consulting community on that. So we were hired by BC Hydro, our utility company, and some municipalities to kind of create this electrification guide, target audience as consultants, and it ended up kind of being like a textbook. That wasn't our intent, but just as we were creating it, there was sort of more and more stuff we wanted to add. This ended up being like a 200-page document. it's rich, it's full of great content, but like it's kind of a beast and it's kind of hard to interact with. It's like, well, is there a way that we can make that easier with AI? And so another tool, so this is sort of a non-chat GPT example, but Google has a service called Google LM. And it's kind of nice. It's I don't know, it's kind of built for dealing with documents and things like that. So what we did is I uploaded the guide to it. And that took a few minutes because it's a big file. But once it did, what it does, it creates an interface for you where I can start asking it questions like, anything that I want to know that might be in that guide. Or it'll do a study guide for you, a briefing doc. So it'll take this 200-page document, summarize it into, 2 or 3 pages. But this interactive feature, I think, is what's really cool, is that you can start asking it, what's the best heat pump to use in for domestic hot water? And it'll start giving you an answer about what, actually I've thought about doing a live demo. I don't have internet though, so I can't do that. But anyway, you can do this, and actually there was a great example somebody brought up a couple of days ago where they've started to do this with specifications. So they're a contractor, they get again, I'm a consulting engineer, I've written pretty long specifications. You get a spec package that's 200 or 300 pages sometimes. And what they were doing was uploading that and then querying that document to say, okay, I think the example they use is, who's responsible for providing power to the VAV boxes? Is that in my scope? Is that in the electrician's scope? And you could ask the AI and it would go through this 300-page document for you and pull out the relevant information. And I think that's a really cool use of it. The other thing I thought was kind of cool, I'll see if this is going to work, but it created a podcast for this thing.
All right, let's dive into something pretty crucial today. Decarbonizing those existing commercial buildings out there. We're talking low carbon electrification. It's a bit of a mouthful, but don't worry, we'll break it all down.
Yeah, we'll make it easy to digest.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll be in the know about turning those energy hogs into, climate-friendly spaces.
Exactly.
We've got a fantastic guide with us, packed with insights from the pros who are actually out there doing this work. So think of this as like a cheat sheet to the cutting edge,
Right.
Anyway, that's just a little taste. That's a 45-minute AI-generated podcast. That was entirely from it digesting that document. And they have another feature, which I haven't played with, but you can actually interact with the hosts. So you can jump in and start asking questions, and then the hosts will interact with you kind of in real time on the content. So kind of cool, kind of scary, but I think it is interesting to think about how it can change our relationship with how we interact with content like that, because I know a lot of people don't want to sit down and read a 300-page document, but if we can generate I think people still need to generate a lot of that content. I think, the time we spent, although we did use ChatGPT to help write some of the guide, but, it's all, 3 or 4 engineers put a year's worth of work into this thing, but to be able to easily extract that information or send this podcast to a lot of our team didn't participate in creating that guide. They want to quickly get up to speed what's in it, I can send them the podcast. I can send that to clients. I can send that to a lot of people now. So I think that's pretty cool.
All right, let's dive into something pretty crucial today.
Sorry. We'll just let her do the rest of the session.
Existing commercial buildings out there. We're talking...
how do I stop that? There we go. Google LM. Yeah, Google LM. I don't know what LM stands for, but language model. Yeah, there you go. That was kind of obvious, wasn't it? I'm just going to stop there. I've got some more stuff, but maybe are there questions? Yeah.
Do you think, or if not now, but how far from now, do you think that this application can actually do energy modeling?
It's a good question. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the question was, how far away are we from being able to do energy modeling with this tool? And I think, what I think is more likely to happen is that the energy modeling software themselves will start to incorporate AI features. Because I can imagine that, because right now it's a pain. I don't know if any of you have ever done energy modeling. There's a lot of time spent putting inputs into the model, gathering information from various sources. ChatGPT or something going to do the energy model for you? Eventually, maybe, but not right away. But I think what it will be able to do is if you could tell ChatGPT, this is how I need the data formatted for upload into my model. Here are my data sources. Yeah, that you probably could do today. You probably could set it loose on a bunch of source data, have it find the information for you and format an output that you could then just put right into Energy Plus or something. I think that's there today.
I'm curious about the image interpretation ability when you're feeding in BAS screenshots.
Yeah.
What insights are you getting? For example, can it pick up a leaking chilled water valve because it sees valve closed, but we're still getting temperature drop or sensor calibration issues? To what extent can it find operational issues?
So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I bet you it could. Like, if we gave it the trend logs, for example, I don't think it would pick it up from like a screenshot of like a graphic.
What is it picking up from the graphic?
I don't know exactly what it is picking. Like, we didn't we didn't dissect how it was doing it. Or even, because we gave it a bunch of information. We gave it, and they were all image files. So, I mean, it definitely is interpreting image files. But we gave it graphics, we gave it trend logs, and we gave it, shots of the code.
Of the trend logs?
What's that?
CSV files of the trend logs?
No, like pictures of the trend logs, like a screenshot.
Picture, okay.
Yeah, no, we didn't upload CSV data. We gave it, you could, like we could do that, but we gave it like a picture of the trend log. And so we actually didn't dissect which information it was using to get to the output. I think that would be a really interesting exercise to try to better understand, because maybe there's some of the stuff we're giving it that it's not even using. We don't have to bother. That'll save us time, right? So I think understanding that would be helpful. We haven't done that yet. Yeah, Scott.
Brad, as the president of SES, and you got a lot of young engineers coming in from university, right? Like as you guys progress. So what kind of policies are you thinking about? Because obviously we all know the kids coming in from university, they're better at ChatGPT than all of us. And so do you feel comfortable with them using it, like to do some of the tasks you're giving? Are you setting any policies?
Yes.
As to how they use it? Could you speak to that a little?
Yeah, so we have a policy. We have an AI policy, just kind of an initial one that we created because we're like, okay, we should probably get in front of this a little bit. Ironically, the most contentious issue was AI note-taking in meetings, because people wanted to use AI, and other people were like, whoa, like what's this bot joining our meeting, and is it recording us? And so that was actually the catalyst for a lot of it, because we were having some discussions, and there was kind of varying levels of comfort. And so we said, okay, we're going to use, we decided we're going to use this tool. We use a lot of Google stuff, so like Google's got a tool, like we're going to use that. We're not going to use any other tools. We feel comfortable about their privacy policy. And in terms of using ChatGPT, we're fine with it as long as our kind of rule is don't upload any identifying client data. That's kind of the big thing for us, is because we just, I don't trust it. Like I don't, I just don't trust. I don't trust it to not. So, and so that's why, quite frankly, we didn't immediately run forward faster with sort of the automated recommissioning stuff, because we wanted to just kind of take a step back, and because I think even us scrubbing data, I think it's smart enough that it would be able. If I was to go back and say, what building is this? I would not be surprised if it could still tell me. So even our efforts to kind of scrub that data, I suspect are not as complete as they could be. I'm sure there are things that we're missing that the AI can pick up. So I think what we're going to look at is, can we run a local model that is isolated from like the web version of ChatGPT, a local model that we control, so then it can't share that information outside of the boundaries and it's doable. There's a bit of resource investment involved there, and I think we'll do that in the next year. And the tools keep changing so fast too. If we had started trying to do this with ChatGPT 3 months ago, and all of a sudden DeepSeek came along, and okay, we're going to go back and train a new model because this is way better, and we'll probably just need to be prepared for that to some extent. But, yeah, of course.
I'm using ChatSmith, the paid version. Is it the same as ChatGPT?
I don't know. Anybody know? Sorry, what was the name?
ChatSmith.
ChatSmith? Anybody?
Google is same, similar to ChatGPT.
Okay. No. Not sure. it's probably another language model. Like I think, and what somebody told me actually is that DeepSeek is actually better at engineering than ChatGPT. They were finding it to be smarter at engineering technical kind of tasks. So that's interesting, I think. And there are definitely different language models that have different strengths. Like if you're heavy into coding, there are tools other than ChatGPT that will do the coding piece better than it will. So, ChatGPT gets a lot of the attention, and it's easy to use. But if you do want to go deep, you definitely, you can go to websites, and there's thousands of different language models and branches of language models. Like you can go pretty deep on it if you want to. Yeah, question.
Did you try entering some of the data in different formats to see if it became any better or worse? Say, enter some data in CSV formats instead of just PDF, CSV, JSON, and then maybe actually putting some data in Python format?
Not yet. Not for that. Sorry, the question was, have we tried putting data into different formats, like CSV files or Python or JSON? And no, not for this. We have for other things, but that recommissioning example I showed was not. And actually, I was just going to show an example of. Do I have one? Yeah, like here's an example of the question of the file that we've used. And so, it's pictures of the building, the information on the schedules. And it's a bit of work to put this document together. Like we kind of do this for every building we audit. A description of the systems, and then you keep going. Start to get to BAS screenshots. And obviously this hasn't been scrubbed for any identifying data yet. I'm just kind of giving you a sample. But, here's the screenshots, here's some trend logs, here's some of the code. So that's the sort of thing that we're giving it. Any questions? Yeah.
So when you were showing the generation sequence, you said you made it 80% accurate. What was the nature of the 20%?
Well,
hallucinations.
I would say the 80%. Yeah, the 80% accurate in terms of that was actually in relation to sort of identifying recommissioning opportunities, and I would say it didn't really get anything outright wrong. It was a little vague on some of the details. Like it definitely was like, well, you have an opportunity with the chiller, but it didn't really get into the details of like you actually need to go and change your chill water set points and things like that. But it didn't find everything. Like we definitely, and I think that's where the 80% really comes in. Is like it found 8 of the 10 things that we found.
More conservative. I know you can slide it and you change the nature of the aggressiveness of it.
Sure, and we could go back and we could tell it, hey, you missed these things, and then it would get better next time, right? We could give it that feedback, and so that's where the iteration comes in as well. Yeah, question.
Do you use the AI against alarms or fault detection data?
No, the question was, have we used it for alarms or fault detection? No, but I think it could do fault detection pretty well. Like, especially like a static fault detection. I don't think it's, it would be a bunch of work to get it to replace kind of a real time, like, replace SkySpark or something with that. But I definitely think we're not very far off from being, and it probably could do it today with training, but to give it, CSV files of trend logs and say, here are my rules, find the faults. I think that would be kind of a trivial exercise for it. Yeah.
There's a company called Window Analytics that's focused exactly on that, and we kind of put them through the extreme as well. So
That was. It's Bueno Analytics. They have some people around here somewhere. I've talked to them as well, and I like what they're doing. Yeah.
Concerns about its reasoning ability. I think as a few months ago, most models couldn't count the number of R's in strawberries. And I've tested it recently with just random strings, and it can't count the characters in the string. It just can't do it. And so, we're dealing with logic, building automation. That's not, there's a lot of reasoning.
Yep.
And so that concerns me.
As it should. It concerns me too. So it makes mistakes. I will say, the way we treat it, especially as engineers, and like our engineering association has an AI policy out as well for what's the ethical use of AI in engineering work. And it's like a junior engineer. My junior engineers make mistakes all the time. They have logic errors where they think they found something and no, that's, you missed you missed what was actually going on, or you misunderstood the situation, and you gave me a bad recommendation. But like, as a senior engineer, it's my job to review that and find those logic errors and then correct them and teach them, right? And I think in a lot of ways, ChatGPT is no different from like a junior employee. Like, you still need to check it. Like, I can't just rely on, I'm not going to submit those to a client without me going through and checking and verifying that I actually believe that all of those things are accurate. And so, I think that's been a really good example. It's like, humans make mistakes too. And like, yes, these language models make mistakes. And all of the same things we do to check for human mistakes, we should be doing for this. And we can't, I would never rely on it, as I said, to actually do the engineering work without any checks. I think that would be highly unethical, and would be a violation of like engineering principles. So, I think with that mindset, you can avoid a lot of those, those issues. More question? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you mentioned, Peter, is formatting the information in predicate format, so that there's rules about how the model should be constrained on what is actually.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that mic just so everyone can hear.
What you had asked about, make things a little more.
Oh, maybe click the button there.
What you'd asked about to make things a little more accurate, it often revolves around getting your data input in a concise predicate format, meaning the data is represented by not only the data itself, but the rules that the engine needs to conform when it's doing the logic execution. When you do that, you find it to be more accurate. You still can get mistakes, but verification can be requested by asking it to generate predicates to do validation. And it takes a lot of time to understand how to interact with that, but that makes it much more accurate.
Thank you. Yeah, good comments. Yeah.
Has there been any use in like preventative maintenance cases where you say like, I have this piece of equipment in a building, and after X amount of time, come back and remind me to do my maintenance? Has there been anything like that used?
I haven't. I don't know. Jacob?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. It doesn't do a very good job right now of like timing things. Like, it's very instantaneous. It will, and somebody will use it in a tool that's doing that, and you probably could. Can you take a picture of an air handler off of the BAS and paste it into ChatGPT and say, give me a PM plan for this equipment? Yeah, it'll give you the most comprehensive PM plan you've ever seen, based on one picture of what you gave it. It does a pretty good job of that. But as far as like actually doing scheduling and stuff like that, I think you're going to see other tools that are leveraging LMs for that. But right now, it's not really what it does.
Yeah.
In line with what you just said, that picture would need to be like a data plate, or just an overall picture of
just a
JPEG.
Yeah. Pretty. I'm telling you, if you can bring up your BAS on your phone and you can snap a screenshot, you can paste it in the ChatGPT and say, give me a PM maintenance plan for that, and it will use your sensor names, it will use your equipment names, it will generate a document you can send to your PM team. I mean, and it's pretty impressive. Of course, check it. You got to check it, but it'll be 90%.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you.
When we've been using AI, we've noticed that it's really poor at identifying dates. Have you found that?
Sounds like you've had,
Yeah, and it's counting, especially something about like how many R's were in strawberries. So it's really, I've noticed it's really model dependent on that stuff. So try different models, try different variants. If there's something you're trying to do specific that's like date heavy, then I would try jumping around between different versions of GPT and then try jumping around to different LLMs. Because I think it just depends on how the model's kind of tuned. I know right now, like the strawberry R issue is kind of gone now with the newest version of GPT. It does a pretty good job of counting almost anything you give it. So I wonder if it would be better at the date stuff now as well, but I'd say it's kind of like that is what I've kind of noticed.
Do you think at this point you know those names where they're like counting all the belly beans?
Yes.
Picture it.
I bet you it would try, and it would be way closer than you can imagine. Yeah. On the road trips I did with it verbally, I had it do trivia. Perfect. I told it how many people were in the car, who was answering, and it just threw out trivia questions. I said, what are some other games we could play with you? And it just threw out some other ideas. And yeah, really interesting.
Any other question? Yeah. Yeah.
Question about diagnostics. On the,
I think it's still on.
on the question about diagnostics, I've had a couple corner cases of people trying to use it. I used it myself. Mine might have been a corner case because it worked pretty well. I had a furnace that was broken. This was my own. And I dissected the technician manual to build predicates. Now, it took several hours to do it, where a tech would now have to spend several hours trying to figure out what would be wrong with it. But after that dissection and feeding that input, put in a few error codes, and actually the very top highest priority probability error was the one that was wrong. But if you just put the PDF file in, it might go all over the place in terms of trying to determine what the problem is. You really have to have some expertise in knowing how to take the raw data in PDF format and perhaps put it in what I call a learning format, which is helps make the engine more accurate. And that's where all of you can add a lot of value because you have that expertise.
Yeah. 2 minutes. Okay, maybe I'll just take those 2 minutes. So the last stuff I was going to show is just, you can use it for, we've been using it for rapid prototyping. So, and actually it created this presentation for you. But basically, lots of different use cases where we wanted to write, occupancy counting code for the BAS. I won't, well, this will all be there if you want to see it, but some more examples of prompt engineering. But it will give you the code. So here's code that we can use, Python code that we can then use as part of the BAS, to actually do the thing that we want it to do. In this case, it's like setting back spaces based on occupancy. It'll explain the code for you. We also used it to create some weather normalization for meters. So we have it do like the VBA code for Excel. We were basically creating our own little EMIS. We didn't want to go buy any commercial product. We just want to create something kind of on the fly for a client. We could do that pretty easily by just basically asking ChatGPT, here's the problem, here's how I want to do it. Can you help? And it helps, and it'll create. Here's some more prompt stuff, but it creates the VBA code for you that you can put into Excel, and then it helped us create this little dashboard. And this is great for like one-off little R&D projects that you want to do. I mean, this isn't obviously something I'm going to sell as a software to a client, but as a consultant who's been asked to help a client with a problem as a one-off, it's fantastic. Just some notes. It's important to really talk. The iterative refinement, defining clear boundaries, knowing kind of what you want. Like these are all, as you're interacting with the AI, this is, these are all things you want to keep in mind. So anyway, lots of examples, but we're kind of out of time. We'll upload this to Automated Buildings. So question.
I was just wondering where the slides would be.
Yeah, so automatedbuildings.com, there will be a page created for this session. There is a page for this session already. If you just put the title of the session in, if you just Google automatedbuildings.com and real examples of AI, you will find this session, and then we will put these slides onto that webpage that you can find. If you have trouble finding them, you can always reach out. We'll help you find them. Yeah. All right, we're at time. Thank you, everyone. Hands, Jacob. Hope there was something there you can use.